Welcome to Metron's podcast series, Round the Water Table. My name is Bill Baird, Senior Sales Account Manager for Metron. Today we are joined with Aimee Bove of Bove Law. She's a Colorado lawyer for mobile home parks and communities. And we are here to discuss the Colorado's laws relating to utility billing for renters that takes effect on January 1st, 2026. Welcome, Aimee. Thank you so much for joining Metron's podcast.
Bill, it's been wonderful that you invited me here today. We have a really big law change coming up on January 1st, and my practice as a lawyer here in Colorado is representing mobile home parks. Specifically, my law firm represents over 200 of them, and we are very proud to provide water to every single one of those tenants. Now, the law we're going to discuss today doesn't just apply to mobile home parks. It will also apply to multifamily. It also applies to stick-built rentals, as I call them, in my world. And it is very important. This bill, it was Bill 25-1090. It was a House bill. And we all call it, around our own water table, water cooler, the junk fee bill. And I know you've been getting a lot of questions from your clients, haven't you?
That's correct. Yep.
And Bill, we've discussed many times that water here in Colorado is our most valuable resource. It is, to those of us that live here, more valuable than gold. It is our lifeblood, semi-arid, also up in the mountains. And though I dislike over-regulation, that is not what I see this bill is. And let's talk about what the junk fee bill is, first of all, Bill. Pun intended. So I think we've all gone to buy like a ticket for a concert, right?
Correct.
The good old-fashioned, what was the name of that place that did?
Oh, I don't know.
Ticketmaster.
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 Yep.
So you go to Ticketmaster, you'd want to go see the Grateful Dead. I'm sure you're a big fan, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
And you think you're buying a $50 ticket, and after it's all said and done, it's $75. And you're like, where did all these junk fees come from? This is outrageous. And this has been coming up in multiple places for consumers, right? This is really a consumer bill of saying, okay, if you're going to sell something, tell the person who's going to buy it how much it costs. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
And then, but that's when I got a little bit confused because I'm like, but wait, I'm in landlord-tenant law. What are we talking about here? But what they did with House Bill 25-1090, the junk fee bill, is to incorporate landlord-tenant issues. Because what the legislators were hearing from tenants is that they would see maybe on Facebook Marketplace, maybe on Zillow, that they were going to rent a one-bedroom apartment for $1,800. And then by the time it was all said and done, they were getting a $2,100 rent bill, right? Well, that's the same idea as when you go to buy a concert ticket. You should know what you're paying for. Now, that is all great and wonderful ideas. Then the legislator had to write it down into statutory language, and that's why we're here today, Bill. It is confusing.
And these junk bills, I mean, I'm not surprised. These junk bills seem to go even to the airlines, right? That was the new legislation that passed, I believe, this year, or went into effect this year. In regards to that, they have to start disclosing exactly what it's going to cost before you go ahead and purchase the tickets, or as you book into tickets.
Oh, it's infuriating. The seat, the luggage, the soda. I mean, give me an idea of what it's really going to cost, because maybe I just want to buy a ticket on United.
Right, exactly. Well, I think this is such an important subject, right? As you mentioned before, or as I mentioned, we're both Colorado natives, and Colorado, as you mentioned, the water's like gold here. It really is. And this season, for this winter, here in Colorado, we've had very little snow. We went like 200 and something days without any snow here in the state of Colorado. So that's been a very right to the point of this bill, right? This is why the water is so important, that to be able to have consumer fair practicing for both the landlords as well as the tenants, right? And the tenants having to be paying for exactly what they're being billed for the consumption use is very important for us to have that transparency, because and identifying leaks and all these different things that like our meters do, for an example, to give those alerts is going to save, we see an average 25 to 30% savings in the water usage consumption because our meters will be able to track each individual drop of water in their homes. And so effectively that should help conserve millions and millions upon millions of gallons of water in the state of Colorado, which is good for all of us.
And Bill, I agree with you 100% in that our water must be protected and also that people should pay for the water they use.
Yeah.
And what is interesting is that this junk fee bill first thought up of because of tickets and airline tickets, all of that this is going to also help in the landlord-tenant capacity of utilities, specifically water. And let me explain to you, because the law is written very strangely, guys. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's very niche. I suspect you came with a lot of confusion on what this bill really means. If you are a landlord or if you're even a tenant, I'm going to speak right now in terms of your responsibilities as a landlord. And then I think we can go into a little bit on, even though this is cumbersome, some of the compliance might be slightly expensive, whether it means you have to install meters or whether you need to make sure your meters work or you find another way to bill for water. The big takeaway is that Colorado has decided that a tenant should only pay for the water they use.
And this has actually come a long ways. I recall maybe it's been 5 years ago that we did this roundtable at one of the conventions here in the state of Colorado, and I think
Up in Blackhawk.
There was a lot of attorneys up there, and we just did this big roundtable. And I think the Attorney General's office potentially could have been there. I can't recall; it was so many years ago. But
no, the IMPOP program was there.
Yeah, this was all
we had a lot of
works
big ticket people there. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. And so this has been in the works for a long time. It's not something new that the state of Colorado sprung onto landlords or tenants. This has been something that's been an ongoing challenge for to be able to give us some protection for everybody in equal fairness balance.
So we have something called the CDPHE. That is a Colorado organization that largely is in charge of our water quality, anything really to do with water if you're a water provider. And then we have other statutes. Statutes that govern the landlord-tenant relationship. We also have statutes like myself that I work in that is just about mobile homes it's called the Mobile Home Park Act. And then there are these broader scope statutes that we're dealing with right here. And back when we were talking about when do you have to be a public water system regulation, that is all going to be separate and independent from this requirement. So if you're listening to this right now and you're saying, Aimee, I already have a person monitoring my water, sending somebody in a report to CDPHE, our water is clean, everything's good, that's separate, guys. This is a separate, unique regulatory obligation that starts January 1st.
I do have a question on that. If I recall, what that regulation was different. If people were currently doing RUBS, they were not going to be falling underneath the same regulations that are stating about the water testing at the individual homes. Does this now basically kind of force the hands of the mobile home park communities to get away from the RUBS, but then they will also be having to participate in that legislation?
So I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, Bill.
Yeah.
Let's start with what does this current law coming into effect on January 1st mean? What should at my recommendation as an attorney, operating in an abundance of caution, and if you are a landlord in the state of Colorado, you must operate under an abundance of caution. This is highly regulated, highly policed, and it is for the benefit of the tenants. That is your reality. That is it right now. Now, when we talk about my recommendation, which is going to be to exit out of RUBS as soon as possible, then that is going to implicate where you fall under as a utility provider under the CDPHE. There are different laws for stick-built houses, multifamily, aka big apartment complexes, or mobile home communities. So We can circle back to your question, but the long answer is ask your local attorney
There
if
you
you're
go.
going to have additional regulatory requirements by going with RUBS. But now I'm going to tell you why you're going to need to get out of RUBS no matter what the consequence is downstream. Pun intended.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
funny there now. All right. So, Bill, what do you understand about this law at all? Let's start there.
Oh my gosh! Oh, you're quizzing somebody who's not an attorney. So, from the way I'm reading the legislation that's coming into effect on January 1st is that REBS is going away. Like you need to start being compliant, or you should be starting to get used to being in compliance. And even if there's not an immediate enforcement of it, it will probably be coming down the road, right? So, the best thing I would recommend is to obviously get your properties metered as soon as you possibly can, so you're in compliance before that, so you're not becoming underneath any radar of the Attorney General's office.
And that is a really great summary of what I'm going to go into a little more detail now and explain everybody. So there is a law, and I'm going to be a little bit lawyerly here, guys. I'm not going to go too deep, but I know some of you out there are going to check citations. So under House Bill 251090, part of that very long bill has this language, okay? A landlord or the landlord's agent shall not require a tenant to pay a fee, charge, or amount, then we're going to jump down to another part of the provision, okay, related to the provisions of utilities that is above the amount charged by the utility provider for service to the tenant's dwelling unit, except in accordance with Section 3812-801 3A, Roman numeral 6. Now just pause there for a moment. So let's talk about this language for just a second. So here we can see in the junk bill, they've clearly pulled in landlords, right? Okay, so that's our reality. Shall not require, shall not. In lawyer world, shall not means, oh no. It's not a will not. It's not a may not. It is a shall not, okay? So you shall not require a tenant to pay a fee related to water in the amount charged by the utility provider. Okay, who's the utility provider? Might be Denver Water. You might even be on a well that you're probably not getting charged from your own personal well, but anywhere somebody is sending you a bill. So for a lot of my manufactured housing communities, they will get one very humongous water bill from Denver Water, right? And then the idea is okay, now we need to recoup that cost pursuant to a lease provision to then pay that utility provider. That all makes sense, right? Now, let's keep reading though. By the utility provider, let's talk about Denver Water, okay, for service to the tenant's dwelling unit. Mm-hmm. For those of you who know me, know Benjamin Goldberg. He's the real brains behind the operation. Me and Ben argued back and forth. Number one, on the idea of dwelling unit and whether it's applicable to mobile homes. Don't even worry about that brain damage, guys. If you've already got me as an attorney, unfortunately, we have decided that this applies to mobile homes, even if they are just renting the dirt, okay? So, but, Bill, do you see where it says tenants, singular, possessive dwelling unit?
Yeah.
Can I quiz you, or is this too hard?
No, go for it.
What do you think that if it says you can only charge for the water to that dwelling unit, why would that mean RUBS is no good anymore?
Well, because basically, essentially, now these individuals are being charged for the actual consumption use and maybe not the infrastructure losses that may be occurring, or a neighbor that could be using, have 5 people living in there versus an elderly person or an individual living by themselves would be using a lot less water.
So what you're saying is that if your apartment had 10 units
mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Smith, living on a fixed income by herself, lives alone, and her other 9 neighbors all have large families. Mm-hmm. would it be appropriate then just to divide that water bill from Denver Water by 10?
No, and that's one of the arguments for Metron as well. We've always said that RUBS are not fair practice for anybody, right? It's not fair for someone to be, washing their cars constantly and stuff like that, and then the other people in the community have to pay for the consequences of that water usage. And so we've always believed that individuals should be able to be charged for what they're actually using and consuming, and that's a fair practice in our minds as well. A lot of owner groups prefer to, and there's a lot of different solutions that we have here at Metron, being able to put on monitoring devices with the city's meter and be able to sync those up with all the downstream meters so we know exactly what kind of infrastructure loss is occurring. So to our argument, which, I think you remember 4 or 5 years ago up in Blackhawk, where one of my arguments was the fact that the RUBS system was not a very good system for anybody, because if a infrastructure had $10,000 worth of water loss every single month, those tenants are effectively paying for that, and therefore it wasn't much of an incentivization for the owners to be able to fix that, because if they're like, hey, we're not paying for it anyway, the tenants are. So to us, we kind of welcome this legislation for a lot of reasons. Like I said before, the water conservation is very important, but fair billing practices has always been on Metron's agenda. So.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with all of those statements. I want to make sure that the tenants in the communities that I represent are paying for the services that they are actually being provided. Now, I just realized we never explained what RUBS were, did we?
No, we didn't. We kind of jumped right into what RUBS were.
So RUBS are Ratio Utility Billing System. That is what a RUB is. And so just for all of you who have not caught on yet, that is that idea of the 10-unit apartment complex, getting that one bill from Denver Water and then just dividing it by 10. And that is what the legislators, and luckily enough, we finally got some clarification from the Attorney General, is saying they no longer want RUBS to happen for every reason you just stated. All of a sudden Miss Smith is paying for the next door neighbor's leaky faucet or the landlord's leaky water main. We certainly don't want that to happen, right? And it is through, I know here at Metron, like you just said, there's many mechanisms. That is your specialty, not mine. Mine is the law. To make sure that we can stop all that water loss, which goes back to what you, Bill, and I, we've always agreed on is we cannot waste our water.
That's right.
And in mobile homes, leaks, because we have old infrastructure and everything else, it is essential that we are constantly monitoring our water usage so we can fix any leak, because our pipes, unlike an apartment complex, are largely underground.
Right.
We have to be very much on top of that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And one of the great things about the Metron meters is going to be able to calculate to the minute consumption usage down to the minute, right? So each individual home that may have that simple drip in their faucets, you'd be very, very surprised that how much water waste is done from simple drips in the water.
I've always been surprised by that.
And everything's all time-stamped with our meters, which makes it very effective to be able to show that to tenants, hey, like, this is what it's costing you. It breaks it down based on that water waste versus what you're actually using for consumption-wise. And when we point those out to the tenants and everything, they're able to go and fix that so that way, instead of getting a $100 water bill, their water bill gets reduced down to $70. Well, that extra $30 a month can make a huge difference to them. So,
it's massive.
Yeah, and in comparison to a lot of other metering companies out there, they don't have the capability of going down to 1 minute data. And that's what really differentiates us. And this is also why a lot of clients, big and small, use Metron across the nation, because we can actually show that, and we can show that transparency for the owners as well as for the tenants as well.
So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, it's 2 days before January 1st, maybe it's a month after January 1st, and you are upset, you're stressed, you're like, how am I supposed to become compliant with this? It's coming so quickly. I've just heard about all this now. Number one, I feel you. Colorado legislation, particularly in the landlord-tenant space and even in the consumer space as well, has been changing rapidly. My clients, I don't know if you hear this from your clients, are so frustrated. They finally get compliant with one statute. Now there's something else. And because this junk bill is underneath the Attorney General, there's something called treble damages. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so things are about to get scary, guys. So, the legislator, like I've said, has made it clear. The Attorney General, with this letter, has made it clear that the intent of the statute and the plain language is that you need to be able to, some way or the other, metering's a great option, but you as a landlord need to figure out a way to be able to show the AG if they come knocking on your door that you charge Mrs. Smith X amount per month. Number one, it was appropriately disclosed in your lease. Contact your attorney about that. And number two, it is actually what she used and the method that you are doing it. Now, with that being said, if the Attorney General comes knocking underneath this statute and it finds out that you did not do this appropriately, not only does the tenant have a private right of action to full attorney's fees, there's something called treble damages. That means if you're found to be in breach of it, they can automatically say whatever that amount you owe is times 3.
Wow. And
that is to punish you. That is to say, because we have made this law specifically because it is really bad to overcharge Miss Smith for her water. Now, going back to what I just said of this starts January 1st, I'm ripping my hair out.
Yeah.
We have gotten some great guidance from the Attorney General. And if you, I'm going to put words into Bill's mouth, if you email Bill, he will send you a copy of it. This is a public document, okay? This was issued out November 24th. And really what it is saying is the AG has made a memorandum in where they are stating that at this time, using their discretion, they are not going to go after people still using RUBS right now, if you don't do these other things. Now, before we read these other things, Bill, can I get you to read that when it's time?
For sure.
I want to be very clear. My firm works with the Attorney General's office in many different divisions. And we love guidance from the Attorney General. It is guidance. You will also notice that when I read something right here, they use the word discretion. Okay, I'm a mom. I use my discretion quite a bit on how mad I want to be at my son at any given time, right? Might have to do with my mood. Might have to be that he was kind of cute about it. Might have been that it really wasn't that impactful. But I may use my discretion on his bedtime. You want to hang your hat on my discretion? No, absolutely not, because mom could be in a bad mood, right?
Right.
Or mom could be running for governor this summer and hears that there is a large provider out there deciding to go down the happy dance RUBS, and they're probably not going to meet all these 4 criteria. So what I'm going to tell you is when you hear this, that it is my opinion to all of my clients that they still get away from RUBS as quickly as possible. By the Attorney General saying on November 24th that they're going to use their discretion to not enforce this valid statutory law if you don't breach these other 4 factors right now. That is giving you time to get your ducks in a row. However you decide as a landlord, meter or not, to make it so you are not using RUBS by this spring at the very latest this summer. That is not legal advice. You cannot hang your hat on that. Perfect world, you have no RUBS January 1st. All right. Now I'm going to read what this letter says, okay? So this was in response to the department getting many, many questions from landlords out there saying, what does this bill really mean regarding RUBS? All the stuff we just went through, right? So the AG says, in response to written communications and inquiries, it is the determination of the Attorney General that the department will exercise its discretion to enforce the new, this is the statutory site now for what we were talking about the House bill was, okay? Section 6-1-737, subsection 4, subsection A. That's a Colorado revised statute. I know there's always a couple of you guys who like to look them up. I appreciate that. Okay. They are going to use their discretion to enforce this statute in a manner that does not pursue legal actions against landlords that allocates utility costs among tenants using a ratio utility billing system, RUBS, provided that. Now let's pause, guys. Let's think about that language. Pretty lawyerly, wasn't it? Pretty soft, too. Discretion to use its legal authority under the statute. First things first, guys, and I am repeating myself on purpose. This is the AG taking out the gray area of whether this is even applicable. Because weren't you getting questions, Bill? Were you? What was going on? What was the hubbub? Just tell me what the hubbub was when this first got passed.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things, first of all, I don't know how many community owners actually know this is going into effect, to be quite honest with you. Because when we do bring it up, a lot of people sit there and say, well, I can still continue doing RUBS. And most people were bringing up the fact about water testing at their individual homes for the
old law.
For the old law.
It's only old now.
Yeah. So the old law, so they're always talking about that. And I don't know how many people, to be quite honest with you, know that this is actually going into effect on January 1st. So,
can I interrupt you? Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I think you already know. And you better know this too. Ignorance is not a defense to the law.
That's correct. Yep.
Keep going.
That's correct. Yeah. And I agree with you. And I don't know how they even get out notifications. And to your point, just because you didn't get a notification doesn't mean you're not supposed to be aware of this, the law changes. So, a lot of the people, like I said before, were coming to us about the old laws with the water testing and all this other stuff. So I don't know how many people know that this is going to be applicable to them and how this is really going to affect them on January 1st. So this is also the reason why I think this is a great timing. Yes, it's late into this year. It's not much notice, but I think, as she mentioned, there is a discretionary protocols that are going to be taking place here, and I think there's, 4 of them to read off of here of what they can possibly do to stay or at least try to get into compliance before
So what
November.
Bill is getting ready to read are the 4 requirements if you have RUBS. If you follow and can prove that you follow these 4 requirements, the AG, as of November 24th, it's probably still true right now, to be honest with you, will not use their statutory authority, including those treble damages, to come after you. Now, as you hear these, I do not want you to have a big sigh of relief and say, okay, I don't need to worry about this law anymore. If you're still doing RUBS by this summer and certainly next year, I do not know what this discretion is going to be. Our current Attorney General is running for governor. Makes great news for that Attorney General to get a big win against a big landlord. Does it not, Bill?
Yes, it does.
All right. Tell them how they can have a little bit more time if they follow these 4 things.
Got to put on my old man specs here. So let's see here. So number 1 is the aggregate amount billed to all tenants do not exceed the total amount charged by the utility provider for the specific property. So maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Aggregate amounts. What does that mean, Bill?
An unnecessarily, I don't know how to really put aggregate. We're going to have to cut that.
Okay. Oh, no, come on. Okay. So here. So for that first prong out of 4, where you said the aggregate amounts billed, that means out of our 10 units, after you have billed Miss Smith and the other 9 ones, that amount is not more than the bill you got from Denver Water.
Gotcha.
Does that, now remember, let's tie back into what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Mm-hmm. You cannot make this a profit center.
Yeah, it can be a profit center, and especially since you're not a licensed utility company, therefore you definitely cannot.
So many red flags. So, if you are profiting off of your water, come to my office in Denver, and I will smack you. Smack you across your face, okay? Open hand the first time, and then it's going to get a little more. I'll get bigger rings. All right. So don't make it a profit center. The total amounts charged by the utility provider for the specific property. Now, this is interesting. Here it says specific property. The statute talks about the tenant's dwelling unit. Mm-hmm. So you can see how right now the AG is using its discretion to say, we're giving you a little bit of time. But number 1, don't make it a profit center. Okay, let's go to number 2.
Okay, number 2, the landlord does not apply a markup, surcharge, administration fee, or other amount in excess of the actual charges from the utility provider, except as otherwise permitted underneath 38-12-801 3A CRS, which is Colorado Revised Statutes.
Good job.
Roman numericals.
Yes,
sorry.
yeah, no.
And of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Are you not from ancient Rome? Come on, Bill.
No, I'm
Get
not.
it together. Come on. Okay. Markup, surcharge, administration fee. Now, Mr. Metron guy, this gives you the heebie-jeebies a little bit, doesn't it?
Sometimes.
All right. So people like Metron, it's my understanding that there's usually like a fee per meter or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
so there's a couple different ways. We typically like to be able to keep the low cost for any kind of CapEx money that needs to be applied towards something like this. So we typically will do a monthly charge instead of doing a $420 per meter type thing with all the services for 5 years, which is an option.
Is this when you install? I'm sorry, I'm a little lost.
Well, we could do the install too. So typically what we do is we will charge a monthly lease fee, or well, we don't want to really call it a lease fee, but basically we're charging it out at $6 per month for the for each individual meters, or $7 per month, and the monthly fee is going to be applicable for to be able to cover the cost of the meter itself and all the services
it's the
that we
hardware
provide.
and stuff, right?
It's the hardware,
Everything
the
costs
software,
money.
the customer service, all the analytics, all the alerts that we provide, all the individual end users as well as the owner operators. It comes with all that. Instead of having one $420 charge per meter, for an example, we basically put it over a 5-year or a 10-year stretch of what that would look like for payment-wise to them. So that way we cover all of the services that we're providing as well.
So as people are coming on board, if they do want a meter to get out of the rubs, as they absolutely should be, what this is saying right now is while you're still doing rubs, it's my legal opinion, whether you're in a mobile home park, an apartment, or a stick built, all those charges Bill just talked about, do not pass those on to the tenant while you're still doing rubs. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Because those would really now. If you are in a mobile home community, because we are underneath the Mobile Home Park Act, you can never pass through those direct charges like on the like your rent bill every month. It can't say Metron utility fee $6. In a mobile home park, absolutely no administrative costs, even your in-house services, nothing can be passed on. Now, if you are in stick-built or an apartment under this 38-12-801-3A6, there is some allowance for that. Talk to your individual attorney on how much or all, I don't know, of somebody like Metron's charges you can pass through. But that is a hard no. That is your cost of doing business. And your cost of doing business should always just be in a general rent charge. That is always what I advise. Right now, we are in abundance of caution. If you're still doing rubs after January 1st, it's my opinion to my clients, I'm not your attorney, whoever you are out there, do not pass these on. Just make it very, very careful. You're not charging more than Denver Water or whoever it is billing you. And also make sure you're not charging them for common areas. I know metering really helps identifying that. If you can't identify it, it's a whole nother reason why metering is probably a good idea.
Yeah, especially with their swimming pools and everything else. That way they're not, getting that cost and absorbing it down to the tenants anyway. But those individual sub-meters is going to make a huge difference in that, and it could be easily allocated out with our systems.
I love sub-metering because when I get a subpoena from our MPOP program, that is our administrative agency over manufactured housing, and we have a tenant who's concerned about their water bill, and they go, I saw water bubbling up at the sprinklers at the clubhouse. I believe I'm paying for that massive water loss. Number one, valid tenant. I get you.
Yeah.
Number two, where are your sub-meters community? Because I need to respond to this subpoena response.
That's right.
And I love beautiful common areas. And once again, all that water to waste spill, all that water bubbling away. But anyways, okay. So right now, if you are in a situation where it's going to take you a little while, a couple of months to get out of rubs, first thing, no profit center. Number two, administrative charges. You're not passing those on, okay? Abundance of caution. Now, the third one. Go ahead, Bill.
Sure. So the third one is utility costs for common areas or shared facilities are excluded from any tenant allocation.
Well, Well, I think you could probably explain us what that one means, huh, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple. I mean, like I said, if you're filling up a swimming pool and everything else, those costs should definitely not be passed on to the residents, and that's why it's important for us to put in a meter for that individual pool as well. So to your point, if it's ever brought up to any kind of going to court for anything like that, you'll be able to easily, if you're one of our clients and if you happen to be one of Aimee's clients or whatever, it's going to be very easy to prove that, hey, this water for the swimming pool was not passed on to tenants, and here's the reasons why. We can show exactly what kind of consumption use was being used for both the allocation of the pool as well as the tenants.
And this makes a lot of sense to me. None of this so far is outrageous. No. I mean, I don't love the fact that you can't pass on the administrative fees right now, but, that's where it is. Now, number 4. Go ahead.
Sure. The number 4 is the landlord clearly and conspicuously discloses a reasonable and objectively fair method of allocation in a rental agreement and any disclosures otherwise required by law. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's basically saying that if you're going to be doing this, you do need to give out notification and put that into your leases, or how is that exactly going to interpret for? So
this is number 1, you're right. But then there's just a little bit more. So part of this junk fee bill is also that you need to inform people of what the costs are. Mm-hmm. Now, my firm and some other people worked very hard on the Hill to get some language about utility billing because utilities vary, right? So it's not like we could say we're at Ticketmaster, it's a $7 charge for toilets or whatever the heck they do, and it is $7, right?
Right.
Well, number 1, water varies, like we just discussed. Number 2, tenancies vary. In my world, in the mobile home community world, people stay for decades because they own their own homes, right? So the idea of having a lease term of water is going to be $7 a month just does not work.
Right.
So there's specific information in that bill. Talk to your attorney. Make sure your leases starting January 1st clearly state how you are billing water. And so, for example, this one needs to clearly state how it's being associated. So you're going to have to explain how your RUBS works. I would also explain how the community and how everything is being done. Now, if you're like, Aimee, I have RUBS because I don't have a great system right now. This mobile home community was set up in, 1972. We've never had meters. We go from a well. We have all of these unknowns and everything else. I understand that, but now is the time you're going to have to figure it out.
So you bring up a good point with wells. Is this legislation going to affect the well systems if they're not even currently charging anybody back for that system? And the reason why I asked that, because a lot of states, if you have a well system, they will usually, there's a couple different things I've seen in different states. Some states will allow you to say you can only charge for exactly what your maintenance cost is throughout the year. So if you had some catastrophic failures in your pumps and all this other stuff that could be replaceable, then it could be rubbed out, I guess, on a month-to-month basis for that cost. Some don't require you to actually become a utility if you have a well system, but you can charge the same rate as what a municipality rate is charging around your surrounding area. So some can get away with actually charging what a city rate is, even though they're technically, in my opinion, coming to a profit center at that point. But some other places do not even allow you to do that at all. So the incentivization between water well, because all water is important here in the state of Colorado, if you own a well system, is it going to be important for you to submeter that? Or is it one of those type of things where because you can no longer pass on the cost if you do have a well system, so you pretty much still have no choice but to go ahead and rub it, even if you're only charging those tenants, $50 a year for that water consumption use?
Well, there's a lot of different questions there.
There's a lot of questions there, for sure.
So the first thing I would say in terms of this junk fee bill, whether you're paying a bill out of Denver Water or your own wells, is that you cannot charge more than you are being charged. So I'm not going to opine today on whether you can sell your own well water. That's going to be unique by property going on. I am not personally aware, does not mean it does not exist, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I'm not personally aware of there being a bar of selling your well water to tenants, but it does come with CDPHE regulations out of the rear end. So, but what I have seen, to go to your point of why I would recommend metering even to my well people, is I have a couple wells in my communities that even though it's a well, they're mandated by the local governing, whether it's the county or the municipality, to only use so much from that well. And I have had cases where their well usage is going out, but they have no meter, so they can't figure out where all the water is going. So even if you are on a well, I have seen the benefit of metering for various different reasons.
Yeah. We used to have a property in Aurora that was 2 well systems and very large property, and it immediately we saw a 40% reduction rate in the water consumption usage, and which downstream for the city, and that particular property was actually hooked up to the city sewer, and so. Not in this particular case that we were able to reduce the sewage bill because they did it based on how much the occupancy was on the property. So if there was 300 mobile home
they were rubbing sewer.
Basically the city was rubbing the sewer. Yeah, because they're just like, oh, it doesn't matter if you have 300 units, it would be this much. If you have 100 units, it would be this much. So there was, unfortunately, we couldn't do any savings in that. However, that being said, there is a benefit to. If you were able to show that the water reduction is being reduced through the well systems going into the sewage system, some cities will give you credit if you're able to prove that, hey, I'm not using $200,000 or 200,000 gallons going through through your sewage system anymore, right? Or I'm only using X amount,
just
right?
the
and
idea
so they may reduce that rate as well.
That you are able through your product to reduce water being taken out of our aquifer and being directly poured into our sewer management system makes me a happy Coloradoan.
Yeah.
It makes me very happy.
I've seen some crazy things out there where people take their garden hose and they'll actually put it down their sewage line and literally 5 gallons per minute flow rates going on through there. And I've seen it all. So that's the great thing about our meters, that we're going to be able to capture all that and be able to see what's going on and be able to help reduce that water waste in Colorado.
Well, I always tell this story. I shouldn't out myself because this is absolutely horrible. But when I was a undergrad at CU Boulder, for the first time in my life, I moved into an apartment complex that, number one, had boiler heat.
Oh, yes.
And it also, that was how they heated their water.
They still do.
And I was not charged for my water.
Oh, wow.
And this was in the 90s, so please forgive me. I feel like the water gods are still angry. I would have hot water coming out of my bathroom tap to steam my bathroom, and then I would also sit in essentially under a waterfall of hot water for, I swear to goodness, 45 minutes.
Wow.
And once I started paying my water bill, that
changed.
So, I think even people who are not evil watermongers, we're so much more responsible when we realize that we're being held accountable for what we're using.
Behavior changes are amazing when you see it in water consumption use. I imagine electric bills are the same thing, for an example. So, I think that to your point, once you start paying for it, and, understandably so, that I think that the property owners, once they go and submeter their water and everything else, they're going to see a pretty good, 25 to 30% reduction in their main water bill as well. So, even though if they, want the tenants to pay that, which brings another question to this, is that in order for them to, if a community does not currently have meters in and they install the meters in February, for an example, will they be able to start charging back that water immediately to the tenant, or do they have to wait for the individual leases to come due before they can actually start charging back? Or can they make an addendum to their leases with their current tenants to accept the fact that they're going to pay for their own water?
Well, let me talk about, first of all, globally, you need to talk to your attorney when you change your water billing at all. Underneath the Mobile Home Park Act, which I can talk directly about, is that you are bound by your lease, even if it was signed in 1981, about what it says on water. But Bove Law, with the help of our many wonderful lobbyists and associated groups, were able to, a couple years ago, I call it the Goldberg rule because Mr. Goldberg wrote it himself, which is that you can amend your lease language on utilities with 60 days notice if that amendment is not adverse to your existing lease language.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Ms. Smith signed her mobile home lot rental lease in 1981, and it says utilities are included in rent. You are stuck with that forever, guys. Say Ms. Smith's lease says utilities are included in rent. However, this can be amended pursuant to appropriate legal statutory law. You're following the law. If it says something like that, or there's some other examples I will go through, possibly if it's silent, you need to actually have an attorney look at each one of those. But if it opens the door enough, using this provision underneath the rulemaking of the Mobile Home Park Act with 60 days notice, you could go from RUBS to metering. Now, you need to use language that is very, very clear. Second part is if you're in a mobile home community, I know it's not going to be the vast majority of the people listening here, but you cannot force anybody to sign a new lease.
Sure.
And you cannot amend a lease.
Okay.
So what you're going to need to do is look at your current leases, talk to your attorney, and it is typically, if you're able to change it from however you're doing it, is going to be some sort of notice. It takes 60 days, which is why I am thankful that the Attorney General gave us this guidance, but I'm really just looking at this guidance as that time frame to get those RUB ducks in a row, not a long-term way to do your water as RUBs. Does
Makes
that make sense?
Yeah, totally
Okay.
makes sense. And I think that's why a lot of our, not speaking on behalf of the owner groups, but there's a lot of owner groups that prefer to do month-to-month leases, and that way it gives them the ability to change any kind of lease agreements. And I don't know, particularly we don't have all the time in the world to be able to go over all this with Aimee, but if you want to hire Aimee, it's great. But one thing you guys may want to consider too is I guess one of the question is if does a whole park, if you have 100 sites, for an example, and their leases are locked and clad like that 1981 lease that you're referring to, if there's new tenants coming in, let's say 2 months later, 2 people leave or 2 homes leave and then 2 new tenants move in, you can provide them individual leases. To charge back that water versus the other 98, maybe the park owner's eating that until they can get that amended. But, maybe that's here nor there. Probably better question, rather, for you guys to reach out to Bove Law and to be able to get that questions answered, stuff like that, if there's a lot of underlining questions. Because we can talk about this for hours.
But that's a really good point, is this is just one part of the junk fee bill. There is quite significant obligations also regarding your leases to make sure all these charges are properly disclosed, also in terms of your advertising. And saying your rent is X when somebody walks into your manager's office is actually a form of advertising. You need to make sure that's done. Everybody should be revising their leases. So at least when a new person comes into your park, they will have golden leases that not only have it how you want to bill now, but will also give you that language to say that we can amend it. And so you're not back to that 1981, which ties me into this last sentence on this Attorney General's guidance. And this one is still a little gray for me, but let me read this out loud to you. This is regarding your existing leases, okay, guys? Furthermore, the department, that's the Attorney General, will not enforce 61 or 6-1-737-4A retroactively pursuant to Section 5, that's the applicability clause, okay, I know this is a little heavy, of the junk bill. Therefore, any enforcement actions taken by the department will be pertaining to leases amended, renewed, or entered into on or after January 1st, 2026. That is the effective date for the junk bill. Now, it was a lot of legal gobbledygook, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was. And Ben and I have talked about this, Mr. Goldberg. So what does this mean? Number one, it means pretty much nothing if you are in the mobile home space, because by statute, our leases renew monthly once the original lease term is expired. And don't forget, guys, now that the apartments and the stick bills are also under the for-cause bill, that may have some implication into this in terms of a renewed lease. Okay. Now, retroactive enforcement. Under the Constitution of the state of Colorado, really nothing should be retroactively enforced. But I'm not here to get on my soapbox as an attorney. But with that being said, what I feel, so this is not legal advice, that this means is that if you have an old lease, say it was a 2-year term lease, and you're in an apartment complex, and it said RUBS, and it was fully and properly disclosed, and you meet 1, 2, 3, Murata Profit Center, right? You're not passing back administrative fees. you are not charging for the pool. And your lease clearly states this is RUBS and the tenant can understand it. Mm-hmm. The tenant, not the landlord. They don't care what you understand.
Right.
You're not a landlord, but I talk to a lot of landlords. It's what the tenant understands. So if you have a 2-year lease, it is very likely this is your get out of jail card for that 2 years. But if that lease comes up for a renewal, the moment it renews, you're gone, because let's look at this language again. Therefore, any enforcement actions taken by the AG, regarding the junk fee bill, will be pertaining to leases amended. We talked about amending that lease, didn't we?
Yep.
Renewed, 2-year lease finally expires, you want them to stay, they're great tenants, or entered into. Bob comes into your office and says, I would like to rent apartment 7C. On or after January 1st, 2026 date. Again, guys, this is not your get out of jail free card, this opinion. This is you have enough time to learn how to escape getting out of jail.
Right. Who do you need?
And if you're one of my clients, you should be absolutely getting out of RUBS now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what's happening January 1st.
Well, thank you so much, Aimee, for, like I said, coming in, introducing this new legislation, and helping us dissect it all, right? I mean, it's a lot to digest for a lot of owner groups out there as well. Law is never an easy thing for a lot of people to be able to understand, so it's great to have someone with your expertise to always come in here, and it's always great to have a local native Coloradoan who cares about the water like we do. So,
we do.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to point out, like I said, we'll give you everybody Aimee Bove's Bove Law's information, so you guys can reach out and contact her if you have any questions and stuff like that with her firm. And she's always happy to help everybody out that she can. So
I am, and thank you for inviting me, because what you said earlier about your concern that landlords don't know about this law, your concern is valid. The vast majority of Colorado landlords specifically, if you're not a large, have in-house legal, you have exposure here. So if you're listening to this and you just have a friend who rents a house, you have a friend with an apartment complex, just tell them to listen to this podcast or to Google the Colorado junk fee bill and landlord tenant, because ignorance is not a defense.
Right.
And right now, a landlord, in my opinion, Aimee Bove's opinion, landlord is a dirty word in Colorado right now.
Sure. And
you must protect yourself, because by protecting yourself, you are protecting our housing stock for the Coloradoans that we both, you and I, care very deeply about, even more than water.
That's right. And again, as she mentioned earlier, if you guys want to reach out to me, I can provide you this 2-page document if you want to be able to review it on your own. So, save yourself a little bit of money before contacting Aimee's law firm, but that'll help out a little bit anyways. But you're still probably going to want any kind of direction. But, we can help guide you through the metering process and get you all set up. We have install crews and everything else. That way you guys are going to be compliant sooner than later. To Aimee's point, you just don't you at least want to start making steps right away.
And once you fully know what the cost is to abide by this law is the time where you can start making your more global budgets on, the most effective and best way to be able to recoup those costs legally. And just so you know, Bove Law only represent manufactured housing communities. I do not represent the tenants. And we represent communities here in Colorado, and we're also expanding out to Washington State. They're also being heavily regulated out there, and me and Mr. Goldberg are happy to protect our fellow housing landlords out there in Washington State.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.